So what do you remember?
I remember
nothing, so I'm going to go first. There was singing, I think.
Captain's Pod, Stardate 809623.1. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your captain, Ian Whittington, and with me, as always, to this ambassador, there are no shades of grey. It's Deneé.
Hey!
And we just woke him up from an alien plant-induced sex dream. It's Commodore Dicer.
Heidely ho, Trekkerinos.
Trekkerinos, I love it. Whoa, could you sort your microphone out? Because it just pinged my headphones.
Why do you attach it to the microphone? Attach it to your shirt. That's where
you attached it to the microphone. I just don't want to mess with your stuff. Anyway, welcome back to the Cinterprise, Commodore.
Thank you. It is good to be here.
Is it though?
Are you excited to join us for this Strange New World Season 2 next week?
I really am. I, first of all, love you both, have missed you both, have missed potting with you both, and also have missed Strange New Worlds. Like, it's a really fun show week to week, and I really enjoyed talking about it last time. So I, for one, am extremely grateful to be invited back. So thank you.
Heck yeah. Well, as advertised last...
You're welcome.
As advertised last week, you might be expecting us to be covering relics. Ian, hands down, hands up, hands down. Hands down, my hands are up. The captain fucked up and forgot that we were doing a Strange New Worlds recap. So relics will be relegated to a future episode. And this week, we're going to go episode by episode through Strange New Worlds Season 1, give a little recap, talk about what we liked, if we can remember any of it.
It's so
and
weird.
At the end of the show, do a little bit about what we're excited for in Strange New Worlds Season 2. However, the Commodore and the Ambassador have not watched the Season 2 trailer, so we will not be talking trailer spoilers, episode titles, just general feelings about the about Season 2. Deneé, like, are you excited as well? Like, do you have fond memories of Strange New Worlds? Excited for Season 2?
I had very fond memories of Strange New Worlds, which makes me nervous because
Sure,
that's fair.
I'm regularly ready to be disappointed with whatever I watch. Not because of my job. Let's just be clear. I was this way before my job was to get nitpicky about things that I watch. But Strange New Worlds, I just remember it being a really fun experience because every week there was something interesting to watch. I remember they kind of tried like a horror episode. And then I was meeting TOS characters for the first time, which was a delightful conversation that we got to have as a crew, where I'm kind of learning about, Uhura, and fell in love with Spock, of course.
That's probably my single biggest joy that I saw from you was the D&D basically episode and the love of Ethan Peck's Spock from you. I love that he's become your Spock.
Yes, he is my Spock, and I'm excited to see him again because he's handsome. And I like to look at him. Also listen to him.
For the podcast listener, Deneé's entire face got like the smoky filter where you have like the mist that comes across the lens. She got legit doughy-eyed. That's amazing.
And I also really loved how each episode was put together from a storytelling perspective. I remember liking the camera angles, the set designs, and specifically the costuming. I have little flashbacks of us geeking out on the costuming, especially in the episode that we're going to talk about today, where it's like the fantasy kind of one.
Yeah.
And I remember geeking out about that. So the hard thing about it is I'm going to really enjoy the show and remembering things and then get nervous when we start Season 2.
Right.
Which we are not going to be spoiling. By the way, we're not talking about trailers or anything for Season 2. Both Commodore Dicer and myself like to go in completely blind. So I think the only person who's seen things coming up is Captain
I can't help myself. I genuinely said to myself, I'm not going to watch the Season 2 trailer. I've consumed every second of it. I've watched it multiple times. It is possibly one of the most spoilery trailers I've seen for a TV show in recent memory. It's pretty bonkers what they show you, but I kind of get it as well. It's a 10-week commitment. They got to get those numbers. I kind of forgive them a little bit for it, but yeah, for me, like, expectations are really, really high. They were low for like kind of going into Strange New Worlds because I was like, it's a reboot, fine, cool, I'm sure it'll be fun. It smashed all of my expectations. So yeah, it's high for season 2.
Can't help yourself.
Well, am I remembering right that we did see one because Paramount Plus is like ad free, but not really for its own content?
Ad free other than its own ads.
I can't remember. I remember watching one going, I didn't want to watch this, but I watched it anyway. And was that Picard or was that Strange New Worlds? Thankfully, I don't remember, so don't remind me.
That's awesome. That's great. So I remember thinking this at the time, that it came on and I was like, it doesn't matter. She'll forget this by the time it comes around to do the show.
It's true.
It's great.
It's wonderful that my life is so chaotic. I literally can't remember things that happened.
That's
it's wonderful,
beautiful.
Guys. Highly recommend.
On that quantum torpedo of chaos, let's head over to 10 Forward, where I have a slideshow ready to talk about Strange New Worlds Season 1.
Let's go!
3 to beam to 10 Forward. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink or something from the replicator and share our post thoughts on season 1 of Strange New Worlds. And most important question first, what are your beverages of choice?
I'm going to have a chai tea that I got from the ATM machine.
The ATM? It's a rep. Because they look like ATM. This is why I don't have you on
It's a Spider-Verse reference. It's fine.
Movie I haven't seen.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Ambassador. What would you like?
Maybe something with like a memory booster, because I don't remember shit.
That could be a chai tea latte.
Some what's the ginkgo biloba or whatever?
Ginkgo biloba,
What did you call me?
I was literally about to say some ginkgo biloba, decided not to in case I was mispronouncing it, but I still could, because one time Aaron and I were on the radio live and we were mispronouncing
quinoa.
All
what did
morning.
you pronounce it as?
Quinoa.
Quinoa?
It's
not quinoa.
The whole show.
It's not.
Every single time.
You didn't.
We sure fucking did.
Get some free shavocado on that quinoa.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I believe we had just seen an article that was released that said all of its health properties, and we were really interested in that. And so we had never heard of quinoa before, and you can tell because we called it quinoa the whole time.
Amazing.
And how many calls did we get correcting us?
Zero
calls.
It's hilarious. Just let you do that shit. That's amazing.
Just like nobody told me about the Quelsadilla bullshit. Anyway,
nobody in the Ozarks. Nobody in the Ozarks.
That's my ass.
Okay, I'm completely derailed, but I would like some cream for my hemorrhoids, which are still rampant. They are still very much in me, on me, around me.
Outside of you.
Outside of me, technically. Because, actually, no, that's a good point.
Well, it depends.
That's the whole...
There's internal hemorrhoids, there's external hemorrhoids.
Goodness. I have all
that's
of
true.
them.
Both
I
of
really
them.
do.
Yeah.
Okay, so how this is going to run down, we're going to go episode by episode, and we're going to... This was the ambassador's idea, because she's a bit of a sadist. We're going to do the episode title, and we're going to see if the ambassador and the Commodore can remember what the episode was. I'll feed them a couple clues, and then once we regurgitate what the episode is, then we'll kind of say what we loved about it, and if we can remember any sins, and then we'll kind of go through like that.
Okay, but chat can help us, right? Because as you lovely podcast listeners know, we do this show live. So as you're giving us sort of like a synopsis, chat can just put in whatever they remember, and we can use that information to. Okay,
but we will put a disclaimer. If you use something from the chat, we will make it aware, so we don't think anyone is
Somebody
smarter
should tell me
than
where
they
this
are.
chat is.
Do you genuinely not have it on your screen? You are so annoying.
This is going to be a great season.
This is going to be amazing.
I will say before we get into this, I feel bad sometimes. I feel like I'm not a good fan of stuff because I really do watch stuff and then it goes away. I watch so much content that I don't hold on to details. So this is going to be interesting for sure for me.
This is going to be really interesting. Yeah.
I'm very similar. I have the Wikipedia descriptions in front of me. Sponsor of the show, Wikipedia. They're not.
I would hope not.
And I still do not remember them when I've read the description. It's really scary. Okay, the first episode is very helpfully called Strange New Worlds. Good?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about this episode?
I remember everything about this episode.
I do too. So strange.
Yeah.
So weird.
So
and
interesting.
Can't really talk about why, but...
No, we have a very detailed and in-depth knowledge of
this particular
particular
episode.
This particular
Now,
episode.
after this episode, I feel like all three of us might be a little bit cloudy, but for some reason, this one.
Specifically, the cumulative problems with this episode. This is like, man, the pilot this is the highest level of difficulty, isn't it, for an episode? This has got to introduce as much of the crew as possible. It's got to be an engaging story. You've got side characters that you have to introduce. You've got to get the premise of the show. You could argue some of that work is done by, hey, we're Star Trek, you know what we are. But going into it, let's start with Deneé. As the kind of newbie, especially to this era of Star Trek specifically, what do you remember about this episode, and did it do a good job of hooking you in from what you can remember to the show?
I actually am not going to have as detailed of a memory as the two of you, because I selected the parts that I went and reviewed, rather than watch an entire episode for reasons.
That makes sense.
So the things that I remember about this one is your excitement about Pike and just sort of like who we're kind of honing in on, and this scene of shock with the pictures up on the screen right now of like gruffy Pike on a horse, not even an alien horse, just
I'm on a horse.
I'm on a horse. I'm a gruff mountain man.
Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the spaceship pulls in, and that was a really fun, for me, like image, because it's a world I know well with horses.
Yeah.
Called Earth. And then all of a sudden just this really cool like spaceship. And then, this mystery kind of starting. I think it started off in this episode right away, right? Where we kind of saw his flash of his death.
Yeah, it happens about a third of the way through the episode. Well, actually, he's talking about it immediately to his lady friend, who she's like, why won't you go back to Starfleet? And he's like, because of the thing that I can't tell you about, because it's dangerous and it's classified. But then he gets like flash in reflective surfaces. He sees his own melting face. Yeah. So we kind of see what he's seeing and what he's struggling with. I do remember I was kind of excited. Maybe even early on, you get to sort of see what the writers are doing. And one of the things that I remember about Strange New World season 1 was how I regularly enjoyed how the women were portrayed. And so he's having this casual, like, post-hookup breakfast with this woman who is actually maybe his superior. And it was just super casual. It didn't seem like it was degrading or shameful in any way. It was just a professional grab your breakfast. And it didn't explain a lot. I'm glad you said breakfast. When you said grab your, I was like, where are we going?
Grab your sausage.
Yes, grab your breakfast sausage. Amazing.
Yeah.
Aaron, what did it do for you? Do you remember? Well, I know you remember the episode, but what did it do for you as a pilot?
I was pleased that the pilot wasn't all, here are the things we're going to be solving in this entire season of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, that was a big thing for you.
It really, there was a singular journey and adventure in the episode, even though it introduced some things that go throughout the season for sure, including Spock's relationship and Pike's past, future, fast, whatever you want to call it, his future and his past. I really liked that we actually went to a different world, had a problem to solved it in a pretty hypocritical way, but I really enjoyed that. I could tell the show was going to be very, very conscious about having an adventure of the week, which I was really excited for. So that's what I remember from watching the first one. Also, why did you think she was his superior? I don't remember that.
So she does say that her security clearance is higher than his. And he says, not on this.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean she oversees him or anything. Okay.
Not necessarily, but they're at the very least, they're equal.
She's higher up possibly on the security clearance, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think maybe I pick up on that stuff because it's interesting to me, that the woman would be in more of a position of authority, which doesn't seem to happen as frequently when there's men that are in the captain's chair so much. And I also remember seeing the bridge.
Yes, it's stacked with women. Like, it's awesome. It's such a female heavy crew. But also just like
the design of the bridge.
Yeah,
like
it's really pretty.
How it's super futuristic yet also not, and they're using a lot of the same audio and just sucks you in.
It is so quote unquote respectful of the original series while also being kind to our 21st century eyeballs. So for me, like what I loved about it the most was the adventure of the week thing. Like, it had to address the Pike stuff that was set up in Discovery, because his future, all of that, him as a character was introduced in Discovery Season 2. So you can't do this without referring back to it. And I think it found the balance pretty well. It's not my favorite thing about it. I would love it to just stand on its own. But if he hadn't showed up in Discovery, we wouldn't have had all of this passion and excitement and engagement for Strange New Worlds. So I love that it reverted back to being pretty quickly, like Aaron said, Adventure of the Week. That's when I got tingles, because I was like, they're really going to do it.
It felt so much like TOS to me, and that's always been kind of my track. So like, yeah, I was definitely on board.
I was just so happy with that, because I was like, even in episode 1, they are committing to, this is an alien of the week, planet of the week, problem of the week. And yeah, a little bit problematic at the end, where he's just like, snaps his fingers, bring down the Enterprise and tell them we'll shoot them unless they start talking, so that they stop shooting each other.
Let's recap what happens, what you're referring to. So in this episode, we start off, which was interesting because we start off like hearing some narration, and it's actually a person it's the alien planet's perspective of essentially the arrival of
so clever
an alien.
It's so clever. You think the voiceover is coming from a human, but it's an alien talking about first contact with humans.
Right.
Such a great way to open.
And then I because we've just recently discussed it, the three of us, this planet witnessed something in the sky through telescopes that they weren't supposed to see. And they reverse technology themselves into some warp technology that allowed them to essentially create a bomb, which wasn't great because there's a civil thing going on between the society, which is there's a big weapon involved. So essentially, our crew that we meet for the first time / re-meeting for the old time. That's a word I just made up. Old. It's OLDTH.
Got it.
Just for those of you who are
makes as much
track.
sense as nth time, which is what everybody else says. So
it's the old time. And they do the fun thing where they become the alien creature through DNA bullshittery, and there's
so
also
much bullshit. We're gonna mess with your genome. Okay.
But it looks really fucking cool. And they kind of go down and try to. I think they're trying to get an assessment of what's going on. I can't remember the exact plot, but anyways, they're trying to help the society not blow itself up by the end. So it starts off with the aliens' perspective, and then it brings us in because there's a situation at hand. So I thought that was kind of clever.
It's really clever, and it's a fun summary of what the Enterprise's mission is as well. It's to explore new worlds and seek out new life. It's a great little embodiment of what Starfleet is about and what we're supposed to do. It's sci-fi bullshittery to one side, and it stretches quite a bit. But we get a great introduction to all of the characters. Do you remember who stood out the most in this episode? Because La'an gets the most kind of backstory. We find out about the Gorn and whatnot. Uhura gets a quick mention. Hema isn't even on the ship yet. We get a little bit of Spock and T'Pring. Do you remember who stood out? Aaron?
To me personally, I mean, I think you just have to listen to the episode to know that it was Nurse Chapel for me.
That's fair. Yeah.
But part of that,
she's so spicy.
I love her personality, and I loved her outfit. I loved that black and white suit so much. So yeah, she stood out to me.
Deneé?
Spock.
Yeah.
There's something about that deep voice. So
it's so deep,
up,
isn't it?
I went to this in the area where I was raised. There's a theme park called Silver Dollar City, and in Silver Dollar City there is this deep sort of like they call it the Echo Hollow, and it's essentially just where the forest is kind of heading down south, and they built a big amphitheater. And my mom, at the end of the day, they would often have like musical guests that would sing down in Echo Hollow, and you could go and you could watch them. And there was this quartet that used to perform there regularly, and the males, the base of the group, of the quartet, won national awards for hitting the lowest note possible by a human.
Nice.
So I would sit in this theater, and he would go and just start going all the way down into his registry while they're doing this incredible 4-part harmonies, and shake every seat in the theater because his voice was just rumbling. So there's something about guys who have really naturally deep voices I've just always been fascinated by, and man, does this guy have it.
Yeah,
I just like to say for my next point,
Put him down. That's amazing.
Shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, for Spock, for so many reasons, but also I think in this episode too, like we get to see part of like the conflict between his character of being Vulcan but also human. And T'Pri, his woman / fiance now, is an interesting juxtaposition too, because it's like going into their culture, which I thought they did a really fun job of sort of exploring.
And she's spicy as well. She is like, I will not chase you across the galaxy for this marriage. You gotta be here for it. And Ethan Peck probably has the hardest job to do here. Like, is there a job harder than playing Spock for the third time? Like, we have Zachary Quinto, who did an incredible job and made it his own. Ethan Peck has to do it again on an ongoing TV show. And he just dominates it, makes it his own, has such a confidence with it. And I can even tell that this is a younger Spock, that this is a Spock that is less experienced than the one that we see with Kirk as well. Like, what an incredible job.
With Samuel Kirk or James Tiberius?
James Tiberius.
All right.
Or James K, as he would currently be at this point, because they got his name wrong. Anyway, we're going to move on now, I believe. Unless there's anything else you wanted to say about episode 1?
No, I think spending a half hour on 10 different episodes is going to go really, really well for us today.
Yep. That's going to be the one we're most detailed on, because it is freshest in our minds for reasons.
For reasons.
So,
for reasons.
Episode 2 was called Children of the Comet.
Oh, this is
it is.
Okay, so there's a picture on the screen, and it is of a Fabergé golden egg inside of a glowing cave, and oh my god, this was so fun!
Yeah, it was. Do you smell Samuel Kirk about to do something fucking dumb?
Oh yeah, that dumbass. Yeah.
So what do you remember?
I remember nothing, so I'm going to go first. There was singing, I think.
Yes!
I think there was singing.
Yes,
That's all I remember. Like, tell me what happened today.
Well, in this episode, I think we focused a little bit more on Uhura, who is kind of like hasn't figured out where she belongs in the crew yet, but she has a lot of different skills. And so she apparently knows like 7 billion languages. And so in this episode, a few of them beam down to explore something, as they do. And they come across this interesting cave that is, I think it's pulsing out sounds or something. And so she figures out as the episode goes on that they're communicating through song, but I can't remember what the danger is. I can't remember what the ticking clock of, you know how like episodes have a ticking clock?
Always.
I can't remember what it is in this one, and I don't remember what happens when the egg opens up.
You remember the most important thing, which is that this is an Uhura episode, and it is beautiful.
Is this also the one where Hemmer appears? Because does he say something to her in this episode about kind of like being brave, or like the way that his Hemmer lives his life is kind of knowing essentially where the end is and then living life to the fullest or something to that effect. I can't remember.
That bit is that's a conversation that happens way later. This is the one where they're all making dinner at the beginning of the thing, and Uhura is just like, wow, you're an Enar, so how do you cook so well? And she's a little bit patronizing, and he's just like, I have other senses. Why are you talking to me right now? Like he's a little bit like, get back in your place. And she says, oh, you have like a precognition thing. Do you use that to cook? And he's basically like, no, I just use my hands and other senses. Is
maybe in this episode they introduce that the characters all kind of get together and cook together too, which was sort of a new thing. And we're sort of seeing all of the different crew, including the second in command. I remember her kind of.
Yeah, Una comes up a little bit
being a dominant position. Yeah.
So the Enterprise and crew find a comet that's heading towards a planet and is going to blow them up or destroy them. So they've got to figure out what this comet is doing. They beam inside it, find the egg. Kirk touches it immediately and gets zapped and like nearly dies. And Spock puts Uhura under a lot of pressure to translate it. And she's just like, I'm a cadet. I can't do this. And Spock's just like, you fucking can, get on with it. And then they both start singing together. Like he has to like really nervously sing. And it is just Ethan Peck singing because it's not great, but you can tell it's like his deep baritone.
That,
And yet they work out that the language is singing and when they get the right tone and stuff.
And mathematics, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what activates the ship. They eventually find out that it's some alien being. Go on.
Oh, is this the one where the alien species believes that like something happens? Does Spock go out of the ship onto a shuttle and move the comet so that it doesn't hit?
Exactly.
And they're saying like, well, we're going to hit this thing anyway, and it's just the way that God intended, essentially. But then it's also like, but also science could alter it somehow, and they just assume that God did it or something at the end.
There's this double meaning where, like, whatever was on the comet was actually going to help the planet and was actually going to like give it water or extra something. And the aliens were
something
arguing
to kind of seed the life or whatever.
Yeah, the aliens were really pissed that Pike had moved the ship because, like, look, we set it on this course because this is manifest destiny. It's supposed to be there. So there's this interesting argument between, was it predetermined? Did a god do it? Or is this science and it was supposed to happen and nature was making it happen? And no one's really right at the end of it, and no one's really wrong.
That's right.
Because it all turns out, even with Spock's involvement as well, it all turns out as it was supposed to turn out. The prophecy is fulfilled and everybody goes about their own way, which is
they avoid like a major war or something. Yeah, that was a really interesting episode and also beautiful.
Aaron, did any of that sound familiar?
Yeah, no, I mean, when you talk about it, I remember it. Yeah. Is this the one where, because Uhura's great at languages, and so she's able to to like do something with a song, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think I'm with you guys now.
Do you remember any visuals, or is this bringing up any feelings or anything about the episode?
No, I remember thinking that I was glad that Uhura was getting, some prominence early on.
Yeah, straight away.
Because the young Uhura thing is really interesting to me. And because a lot is made, I think, in this series about her kind of being a wunderkind, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it was great. I remember thinking, wow, they're going out of the gate. They're going really bold by giving Uhura a lot of screen time, and I loved that.
Would you say they're boldly going?
Oh my goodness, I would not.
I would say
I think
that.
you kind of just did,
I
actually. I think you kind of just did.
Episode 3. Unless there's any final wrap-up thoughts, Deneé.
No.
Episode 3, The Ghosts of Illyria.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What do you remember?
Was the title again?
Yeah,
Deneé,
go.
Over top of it?
I literally don't remember anything about this.
Aaron, you can just go back to writing your scripts if you want.
Man, this is called The Ghosts of Illyria, right? Okay, so in this episode, Pike and Spock, I believe it's just the two of them, they beam down to this planet that has like an archive, like a library archive, and the people that were there before are all gone, and there's these horrible electrical storms that come in, so there's going to be a window where they essentially can't talk back to their ship, and the comms are down, and they're trying to get into this system to figure out what happened. They're looking for clues, if I remember that part correctly. And this is one where the Star Trek does a thing where everybody on board is affected by something, and I believe we were likening it to the TNG series where everyone de-evolves.
Yes, Genesis.
Yeah. Because there's these episodes where everybody has like something happen, and only a couple of them really make it through. And in this one, I think it's through the lights or something that to do with the lighting structure, but everybody is essentially impacted, and they figure out by the end that the ghosts on this planet are actually the people that used to be on this at the station, and there's something to do with them basically turning into just light, and they live inside of the electrical storm. But the reason that our crew is saved is because second in command, what's her name?
Una,
is a race of human? Or just a race?
So she's an Illyrian, which means that she's been genetically modified from birth, and that's been banned. That's illegal. So she's had to
She shouldn't actually be working for Starfleet.
Exactly. She's had to hide who she is in order to join Starfleet.
That's right.
So she essentially has the ability within her genetics to overcome this really intense heat that this light disease where everyone is essentially just really attracted to light and does some weird ass
They're like
shit
setting
throughout
fire
the
to
entire
stuff in their
episode.
quarters. Uhura is like hiding. They're all like licking light bulbs and stuff. And yeah, they synthesize a cure from Una's genome, but she has to admit that she's an Illyrian, and they all agree to keep it hush hush and keep it quiet.
I also believe it was this episode when they were trying to shut down certain parts of the ship that the doctor gets very possessive of a specific teleportation area.
Indeed, yeah. He gets very protective of his emergency transporter and how that must be kept going, and nothing must be tampered with.
Question came up in the chat that's relevant from JCD. Didn't Hammer try to beam part of the sun or the planet's core onto the ship?
Yeah,
the answer is yes.
He did. Yeah, I remember
He
this
did.
now. And he's super excited.
Yeah.
And I remember being so excited because he like nerds out. He's like, we can do this, and spits out a ton of techno jargon. And I'm like, that's my chief engineer. I can't wait to have 7 seasons with him.
And then also, at that time, we didn't know what was going on, so I thought he had a plan. Like, oh, this is a really important part of the plan. But no, he just wanted to get as close as he possibly could to the hottest thing he possibly could.
Yeah, it's so clever. It's so good.
Yeah.
Aaron,
It was
again,
very
any of
clever.
that ring a bell? What did you remember from this episode?
So Uhura's like really good at languages, right? Like
Yeah, she's really good at it.
Especially in this episode.
This episode, yes, started to ring a bell as you talked a little bit about that. In that, this is one of those storylines that did kind of continue through the season. You know, there was threaded throughout. There are a couple things here that are threaded with the, what the buffer? Is that what it's called in the teleportation? The buffer?
The transporter buffer.
The transport. Yeah, it's not
Not
teleport.
teleport,
Got it.
transporter.
Yes. My goal on this show is to prove how little Star Trek person I am.
Yeah.
So that buffer stuff starts here, as well as some of her genetic things start here. So yeah, I'm remembering that. I'm just trying to figure out if they're trying to get as close to the hottest thing as possible, why they're all not in sick bay.
In sick bay with Nurse Chapel. Yeah,
that's what I was just trying to figure out.
So this does set up the really important storyline of Una being literally an illegal alien, and how she's going to have to keep that secret. And I think Captain Pike is like, no, we need to bring this to Starfleet and fight for your right to party and be on the ship. And she's like, no, I want to keep it a secret. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And yeah, I think I had a little bit of concern about how much are we going to be doing these threads that go throughout the series, but this still ended up being a really fun bottle episode. And I remember Chapel running around the ship, like her energy when she's trying to solve a problem is so fun. Uhura tries to help out with it as well. It just does a great job of bringing the crew together and putting in a bit more of a backstory with the first officer as well. And Pike and Spock get some buddy time down on the planet as well. And it's fun to see them on an away mission as well, and trying to crack the secret of who the Illyrians are and where they've gone as well, where they've disappeared to.
Yep. And see their cool away team costumes.
Oh, that jacket!
Outfits.
That jacket is for sale.
That black leather jacket.
Well, it's the grey one, wasn't it? I think it was grey.
Gray.
Yeah. It's dribble,
so
dribble. Yes. So we actually do find out at the end of this, or Una finds out that Mbenga is hiding his daughter in stasis.
Oh, that's right. And she doesn't say anything about it.
Exactly. She has to go into the transporter buffer, figures it out, and keeps the secret. So that's when I remember Aaron being like, okay, we've now got 4 things that are going on.
It was starting to be like, oh, please, let's not get bogged down in season-long stuff.
Yeah, because we've got Pike's thing,
And it didn't.
Una, Mbenga, and La'an as well with the Gorn.
Yeah, they did a good job of like just a little bit. There's something that goes throughout the whole thing, but it wasn't so heavy-handed, which was nice.
Overall, I come out being positive with it because I think it is good to have some of that.
We'll see. I'm holding my thoughts till season, because just the season 1 ending, which we will get to, work concerns me, but that's fine.
Correct. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, on to season 4? Question
No,
mark?
episode
Season 4, that'd be amazing.
Episode 4.
Let's
My
go.
God.
Season 4 is always a good one. Episode 4, Memento Mori. I'll be honest, this is the one I remembered the least about until I reread up on it. Deneé, as you are leading the way, what do you remember from this one? And the image that we've got on screen of Spock and La'an is a big hint.
Yeah, it is. I think he is in her mind in this image. So they did like a little mind meld situation, and La'an has some pretty major trauma because turns out her backstory is legit horror story, where she was basically on a Gorn planet where Gorn would hatch and eat the prey, which was her and her family and her friends and everybody. And she somehow escapes and is found later on, and then she just carries around those emotional scars. And she's also like one of the only people to survive the Gorn, if I remember. And so I don't remember if this is the same episode or not, but there is a Gorn like situation later on. I don't think it's this one. I think it's the horror episode where she essentially starts to take the lead. And in this episode, I remember she's still kind of struggling with when to say what she thinks and be in charge. So by the time we get to the episode where they're in literal danger, she's like, you do what I say or we're not going to survive. And I think this episode sort of gives us an understanding of why she's this confident. But I don't remember a lot other than that. So I did like pull up a little information, and I can give you a very important clue. Because they were en route to deliver an atmospheric processor upgrade on Finibus 3. Yep. So that gives us everything we need to know.
That's the most important thing. I know that's what Aaron was going to say. Based on Deneé's recap, do you remember anything about this?
I immediately remembered that this was the first like major Gorn episode. I only say major because there's some Gorn hints in the first episode and some other things. But and I remember how excited you were about the Gorn being like the big bad.
For me, it's just such a smart choice because the Klingons have been done. The Romulans shouldn't be there yet. The Gorn were always in the background. The Gorn and the Zenkethi were always in the background of TOS, but we never saw them. So it's just a really smart alien to pull on that the fans know of, but haven't been explored very well.
Yeah, I do remember. I'm reading in the chat. I do remember some of the like starships as submarines kind of stuff that was kind of cool with like the depth charges and that kind of stuff.
And the brown dwarf as well. This episode was gorgeous. So the Enterprise ends up going in orbit around the brown dwarf to hide, and they kind of do this warp thing with time dilation to hide from the Gorn. It's really pretty.
It's very much Crimson Tide, Hunt for Red October. Like there's a lot of that cool stuff in here. But yeah, the season gets muddled to me. I don't think this is right. I think this is a later episode where there's like a child or something that they that is in charge of the entire world or something. Yeah. I think that's a later episode.
That's 2 episodes from now.
Okay,
yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was this one, but yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so this one is they're sending supplies to a planet, and they find out that everyone's dead. Everyone's been killed, and La'an recognizes the pattern of attack as being Gorn. So battle stations, and they believe her. They believe that this is a Gorn trap. So the Gorn pretty much come down on them pretty quick, and we get to see our first Gorn ship, which was really, remember it being really, really cool. I remember liking the look of it, and I think Deneé really liked the look of it.
I think I hated it because it didn't seem very aerodynamic.
Oh, yeah, but also space.
Right, which is what you said, rightly so. Yeah. And I was like,
That's
space.
Not such a thing.
Yeah, Borgs are just big cubes. Like, dude, get over it. I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It's amazing. And Spock and La'an end up on a shuttle, and she can't quite fully communicate how they want to get out of it. So she has the answers, but her trauma is preventing her from accessing it.
Because she can kind of read some of their language somehow. It's like locked in her mind.
It's the way they communicate.
And so she was going to give them the communication to basically leave, and she kind of like fools them essentially.
Yes, she does, because they're like using light pulses or something to communicate, and she recognized that. And we get to see Spock doing some mind meld shit, which is just a mind meld ex machina. Just let's mind meld some shit and get it on. But yeah, just I loved, again, it's this, we're actually seeing an accidental theme here it's a deliberate theme, but I didn't notice it until hindsight. Of each episode is giving a lot of backstory into a character and setting up future things while also being a bottle episode. I'm really enjoying the bottle episode-ness of it more than I am the ongoing themes. But I still think it's a really, really clever way to do it. Like, the fact that I barely noticed it means that they're intertwining it pretty seamlessly, in my opinion.
There's a picture that I'm looking at as well that says Uhura and Hammer must hang on for their very lives as the main cargo bay is vented. So I think that it was in this episode that they had that more in-depth conversation about how Uhura needs to kind of figure out essentially her purpose, and that helps Hammer. Like, Hammer kind of knows his purpose, so he has a confidence in his path, which of course, if we're supposed to believe, makes his death easier somehow.
Because he's happy that's the end of his story, Grumble.
Oh yeah, the brother figured out the language and made a book that he gave her, and she remembered it after the mind meld. Thank you, Nick. From
well
chat.
remembered, Nick. Nicely done. Although I think he said he just watched it this morning. So well remembered for this morning.
Well, what? Lucky us. Lucky us.
Yeah, I think Hammer and Uhura have to hide in a stasis pod or a cargo tube or something.
That's the episode that he gets.
Oh, is that?
That's the episode where he dies.
Oh, she's stuck inside it and he gets jettisoned.
Yeah, that's later on.
Sad face. So yeah, important stuff for La'an. Loving her as a character. I love her, like, no give shits attitude. She's great. So on to episode 5. Man, we're doing well on doing this inside an hour. Episode 5, Spock Amok. Like, my goodness. This is do you remember what this episode is, Deneé?
Boring.
Aaron does. Go on,
for it,
Aaron.
Oh, this is Freaky Friday.
Yep.
This is a body switch episode.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's right. Oh, this is a very strange one, isn't it?
This was such a swing. I was like, I cannot believe you're doing a body swap episode. Like, I can't believe this is actually something we're watching now. Spock has to be T'Pring has to be Spock, both getting an idea for what the other has to go through. They
set up some love triangle stuff here too with Chapel, right?
They do with Chapel, correct. Yeah. Because Chapel is like talking to Outtakes, I think, about a date that was going wrong, and Spock and her end up talking about love and shit and stuff. This one lost me a little bit. This was probably my least favorite of the series. I think I remember you two really liking it because it was a bit wacky and a bit off the rails. It went a little bit too wacky for me because I think for some reason isn't Pike sidelined and Spock has to do more than he's supposed to, but T'Pring is in Spock's body? This
isn't the wacky episode I remember liking the most, but I do remember I like the wacky stuff. Like some of my favorite TOS episodes are the ones that go off the rails. So yeah, I do enjoy this kind of stuff, and I remember enjoying it. I like the performances too. I always think it's fun for somebody to try to perform as somebody else. I find that really interesting. So.
Yes, and they had like little gestures that they were doing, and there's something really dangerous about asking a Vulcan. You're asking the person who's playing T'Pring to be Spock, who is slightly human, but also cleverly try to emulate while covering up. It was a lot of mental gymnastics. And to also know that this was probably meant to be a comedy, that's a lot to process for the actors to do their job properly. And I do remember enjoying it because for me, the T'Pring character was like, because she's so
moany,
serious. Yeah.
Bit of a buzzkill.
But at the same time, beautiful. Not only the character, the actor, obviously, but then the culture. We're getting to see these different rituals, and she's just so very serious. And so focusing a little bit too much on the seriousness could have tanked it. But then they like flip it out, and all of a sudden she's in Spock body, and Spock is in T'Pring body. And then it was delightful to watch. I do remember really being impressed with how they pull this off, even though it could have all been avoided if they would have just talked about what was happening, which they eventually do, and that was really funny.
Because this all comes from a ceremony they have to do to understand each other better, and it gets disturbed or something happens and they end up switching bodies.
I think I also remember that this was about the time where I really felt comfortable enough to go, no, they're getting the episode by episode thing right. Because there are many other examples, including now another one with the latest season of Picard, of them of them stretching something that is just like one thing. And this show, At this point, I'm going, oh no, it understands that the episodes are contained little units. And that's so important for me in a TV show, especially a Trek show, for it to be these contained little units. They can have little threads that cross over. That's fine. I mean, I don't need those as much as most people, but it definitely, each episode was feeling like its own thing.
I want to be able to jump back in and just watch one of these episodes on its own without having to worry what season it's in. That's why I love TNG.
Yeah, exactly.
I also remember, I think I remember us talking about how this gives us a little bit more into Spock's history with T'Pring before TOS, where maybe the relationship with Chapel is a little bit different, because maybe the question for fans is always like, well, tell us more about T'Pring, like what was before? And this is the show addressing that slightly, but doing it in a clever way where, one, T'Pring is angry, and chat brings this up, but there was a dinner that Spock didn't come to because there's a negotiation. Was this a negotiation with the race that really appreciated honesty, maybe?
Yeah.
What was the title of this episode?
Spock Amok.
Was it something about something candor?
Oh no, Absolute Candor is from Picard season 1. That's the Romulan sect that appreciates absolute honesty. But these aliens were very similar. Like, they didn't like the so Pike comes out saying that you shouldn't join the Federation because of this reason, and this reason. Like, maybe you should join the Klingons because the Klingons will do this. And then they're like, okay, we'll join the Federation. Because instead of trying to convince them, Pike just lays out, here's the pros and cons. Decide. I'm not going to try and fluff you one way or the other. And that was really clever. Like, I loved that.
Yeah. And so then T'Pring has to join those negotiations as Spock. Meanwhile, Spock has to go do some of T'Pring's duties, which we get to see, and I think chat mentioned it, Cybok.
So I totally freaking forgot about this. T'Pring works basically in a Vulcan rehabilitation center where Vulcans who have lost the path and don't believe in logic are getting brought back into the fold. And Cybok is there. And I was like, oh man, we're going to mention Cybok, who is the big bad in Final Frontier and Spock's half-brother. So I was like...
And Spock punches him out as T'Pring?
Correct, yes, correct.
Yes.
And which I love, and it's a great moment.
Emotional.
But I was like, wow, we're bringing in a lot of shit here. And if Cybok comes up in season 2, I would have been like, oh shit, yeah, we did mention him in season 1. It's a weird thing to put in there.
I would really appreciate Nick reminding us of this quote, which was Spock saying, "We have swapped bodies. You can tell by our subtle but different mannerisms." And they were both exactly the same. And I remember that slang. That's why I was chuckling
it's
earlier.
Pike's reaction, because Pike is just like, yeah, no. It's like, yeah, of course, I knew that. Totally different. Pike is great. Anson Mount is great in this episode. Watching his reactions to them, his reacting is so good.
The chat's saying that it wasn't Cybok being punched out. So do your research on this one. Chat's also reminding us this was the Enterprise Bingo, the one where number one and La'an find out that they are nicknamed the No Fun Officers. And they eventually, at the end of this episode, if I remember correctly, they end up going and like signing a tile outside the ship while in space.
I don't know why I hated that whole plot line. I don't.
You hated the Enterprise Bingo of having to tick off these things throughout the ship. Did you think it was like juvenile?
I don't remember. I just had a vivid memory of being like, I really didn't like that storyline. I can't remember exactly what it was though, but I think it was something about it felt inauthentic to what those characters would be spending their time on or doing, or
this wouldn't be important to them, so they wouldn't feel the need to do it just to prove a point. I think that might have been it.
Yeah, something like that.
Interesting. Okay, well, moving on to episode 6. Oh boy. Lift us where suffering.
This is the one I was thinking. Yeah.
Oh, this episode just tanked the rest of the season for me, because every single episode after this one I was like, are we not going to talk about this?
It was rough. Like, we'll just get straight into the summary. The crew of the Enterprise go to this planet after a distress call. And because so let me just get this right. Pike has met this alien before, and basically they go there to help and find out that this kid is basically going to be sacrificed to this machine that creates energy for the planet. It's a battery. Here's a battery for this planet. And Pike basically has to argue this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. And he's told to back off and you stop interfering with this, you can't. And they kind of lose the day. And they have to leave with no resolution. The kid gets plugged in and is a battery. And it's implied that this is very painful as well. And that this goes on for decades until they die in agony and then another kid is put in. So this is where the prime directive and non-interference comes into play and how that can be a negative thing morally. But where do you draw the line?
Yeah, writers, where do you fucking draw the
this
line?
This one got you, Deneé. This one got you big.
Child sacrifice. Listen, I have a child. Everything is different now. That little kid has an iris face, and I'm fucking pissed.
Yeah, Aaron.
I don't have anything bad. I can't top that.
I mean, that's the.
Did anything else happen in this episode we need to talk about? Because we can just fucking move on.
Yeah, we can move on. I think.
Fuck this show.
No,
Fuck it. I don't want to watch this movie. I don't want to watch a show anymore.
I remember thinking, from 7, 8, and 9, we were like, this had better come up again. Like, we'd better revisit this planet and save the day. It does not. Episode 7, The Serene Squall. Aaron, tell me about your feelings on this episode.
My brain just short circuited. I like this character.
So we're talking about, and I've completely forgotten her name. We're talking about, I've brought up on screen a picture of the big antagonist in this episode, which is Dr. Aspen, played by Jesse James Keitel.
Well, let me also be clear. It's not just a very much the attitude of sensuality that this character carries with them. It's also, I really liked the way this character, if I remember correctly, played in and out of expectations. Like there was a real villain or hero vibe to this character,
throughout, which is kind of
the episode,
unresolved,
which I really, really liked. I love this character.
Yeah, and the picture that we have on screen at the minute is Dr. Aspen draped
trying
across...
to seduce me. Let's be clear. She is trying to seduce me right now.
Draped across...
I think everyone trying to seduce everyone.
Draped across the... you've short-circuited me! Draped across the captain's chair in a very seductive manner. So this is about a pirate... This is basically a pirate storyline. Picard, damn it. Pike and friends get kidnapped by
You may
pirates.
be more flustered than I am.
I think I might be. Basically, she's pretending to be a masquerading as working for Starfleet, is working with pirates to bring. So her real name is Angel, I think, and
Correct.
Angel is trying to free a Vulcan prisoner that T'Pring has. So it kind of brings T'Pring back into the story, and I remember at the very end of this one, this is what sticks out in my head, is that Chapel and Spock end up kissing to prove a point that T'Pring doesn't matter, so that Angel will let T'Pring go. Am I remembering that right?
That sounds right. Yeah, like they sort of forced a situation where there was an interaction between Chapel and Spock, and T'Pring had to watch or be aware of it.
I do also want to say, we will do our best, and we're all learning and those kind of things. But Captain Angel is a non-binary character with they, them pronouns. So
what I read was that they use she, her, and they, them.
Could be.
I could be mistaken. We'll go with they, them to be safe.
Yeah. But anyways, just wanted to put that out there. And Jesse James Keitel does an amazing job.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely do. Sorry, carry on, Deneé.
I don't know. I don't remember anything about this one at all. Zero.
Yeah, I remember the pirates. I remember Pike having to talk to the pirates about, like, cooking and is, like, offering to cook for them, I think. And there's shenanigans with that. That's why Spock is in command and Angel takes over.
Yeah, so our crew ends up like shenaniganing the pirate crew, and then I do remember in my mind our crew at their helm.
Yes, they take over the whole ship, and they're like fighting to get back to the bridge, and Pike is in command of a pirate ship trying to take the Enterprise back.
Yeah.
I remember this episode being so much fun, but it feels like it should be an earlier one, doesn't it? Like, because the back end of the series gets a bit serious, it's kind of like, I don't know, it feels like it should have been a bit earlier, but I really hope we see this character again, because Angel just oozed, I'm meant to be captain of a ship. I do remember being frustrated with the resolution, because Angel's going to like threaten to kill Spock if if T'Pring doesn't release Cybok or someone else, it may not be Cybok, I think it's someone else, and Spock kisses Chapel to prove that won't matter, and Angel's just like, okay, see you later. And then Pike attacks.
Angel gets away by beaming to like a getaway ship.
Yeah, exactly. I still think like they have the upper hand, but we'll see. Okay, on to episode 8, which is, my goodness, the Elysian Kingdom.
This is the wacky episode that I liked
this is the
most.
wacky episode that worked for me. Yeah, Aaron, kick us off.
No, I just remember thinking it was so fun to watch everybody fall into this different fantasy world and the different types of characters. Doesn't Pike turn into kind of a goofy court jester kind of character?
Everyone is playing different character archetypes.
Yeah, and not necessarily completely against type, but oftentimes very against type. Yeah. Which I again love that kind of stuff.
Spock is a wizard.
Yeah,
it's so good.
And I remember thinking I enjoyed the story that got us there and thought it made sense. And it's a very contained episode. This is what I want to see.
Yeah, it was incredible.
This is also the episode where the Doctor's daughter dies / becomes a sentient being, right?
Yeah, my goodness.
Like a whole entire different race.
I think I remember saying this at the time, maybe not. I don't think we needed to know about that until this episode. I really feel like shows feel like they have to stretch out the emotion and the backstory of these characters sometimes too much. I think if we had found that out at the beginning of this episode, had some of that stuff from episode whatever it was, 3 or whatever, and just locked it here, I don't know. Maybe that's just me wanting things to be even more self-contained, but I feel like it could have been here.
It's one of the few reasons I wouldn't necessarily come back to this episode, because it's basically a holodeck episode, but we don't have the holodeck to do it with. So people are trapped in a whatever situation we want. Now it's like it's a King Arthur D&D style thing, because the Nebula has interpreted the book that is being read by Dr. Mbenga to his daughter as like a respite. I think the Nebula is trying to do something nice by giving an experience to his daughter through all of this, and Mbenga has to work his way through the ship to get back to sick bay to figure out what's going on. I think
we talked about whether or not the daughter had to kind of appear in different points. And I think that the emotion of the father releasing the daughter might have felt a little bit strange, having no context before this episode. I think that's where I kind of remember landing on it, because it shows like that he had time to really consider what was going on, and putting that backstory into this episode may have been a bit too much, especially because we get to see Ortega, as a swashbuckling hero. We get to see all these different kind of people doing these really interesting things. I can't remember. I think it was Uhura is this like big princess character. And then, of course, his daughter is really enjoying getting to play and be out and be free, and then turns into this, being of light by the end. This was the one that the book was called The Kingdom of Elysian, by the fictional writer named Benny Russell.
Who is an internal fictional writer, which is really interesting because it's one of Benjamin Sisko's ancestors, or somebody he inhabits at some point. So there's a Deep Space Nine link to that as well, which was just really cleverly done. They don't hang a lantern on it. If you don't read the side of the book, you don't know that it's Benny Russell. So yeah, I love that.
But Hemmer was the standout, I think, for all of us in this one. If I remember, he was the wizard, and I believe he wasn't impacted by this delusion.
Because of his species. He wasn't impacted by it. Because
he had he could the telepathy or something to sort of understand that there was this other being kind of at play, and the Doctor was aware but also not aware, and serious things were happening. So there was a lot at stake. Oh no, Uhura was the bad queen.
Yeah, Uhura was a bad queen.
Una was the one that was wearing the princess dress and had like the little poodle or something.
No,
I can't remember exactly.
Lan brought Christina Chong, her dog was in this episode, and she's kind of like a ditzy princess, I think, which was like super against type. But what a great, and I think she's singing as well, because she's actually come out with an album now after season 1. So she loves singing as well. this was an interesting one because by the end of it, Mbenga is the only one that knows this adventure has happened, tells Una about it, which means that it's only he and Una that know about his daughter and any of that happening, which I wonder if that's going to come up again or play into future episodes. It felt like it got resolved so quick. Like, this is Mbenga saying goodbye to his daughter, and I get it, like, terminal disease is terrible, but he could still find a cure at any point. They're going to new alien planets. He didn't have to quote unquote give up on her. I
still thought there was going to be some sort of play between his daughter and the kid they left strapped to
we were convinced of that.
Yeah, I was convinced that somehow the work he had done with his daughter was going to help this society.
Because that was one of the cruxes of it, was that they had lots of cures for medicine, but they wouldn't work with Mbenga because they're going to interfere with
they wouldn't work together because it was it was like, we don't have the same patterns here.
Why do I have a memory of Pike knowing about this? I have a memory of Pike saying something about, I did that or something. But you're saying he didn't know, so that must be a false memory I've created.
I mean, he knows about Una, but I don't think he knows. Does he know about Mbenga's daughter?
I have this memory of him like responding to the character he played, but I could have completely, believe me, it could be a complete false memory.
No, so they definitely don't. Maybe Mbenga tells them about it, and he thinks, I'm remembering that as well. I'm remembering him saying, like, who was I? And he's like, I'm you were the jester.
Like, or something like that.
Did I do a good job? But maybe Mbenga just they don't remember it, and he's telling them about it. We should just rewatch the episode. Anyway, any last thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, in this one too, like, they did give it a moment where they let her disappear, and we all were like, okie dokie, that's that. And then she comes back and she's like, just to let you know,
all good.
Cool. I've been living a lifetime.
You can go ahead with a clear conscience because I'm having a great time. It's already been 700 years. I'm good.
Yes. And that was a thing that was like, does she, like, the parent is saying, what's your choice, child? But the parent is still the guardian of the child, and so he just kind of let this thing happen rather than fight for his own way to cure her. And it felt a little bit like, man, we've got some back-to-back kid episodes going on here. This is some bug and crazy bullshit. I don't know if it's back-to-back, but it felt really close. And then she returns and she's older, and they get to have kind of a moment together. And I think that we landed it. That was a good story. But the standout is definitely Hemmer, knowing that he's in an illusion, trying to pretend to be a sorcerer as he unlocks like things like, it's magic or whatever. And he was so fun to watch.
It wasn't a tricorder, but he had some gadget, and he's like, magic. And I remember loving the set dressing of the Enterprise as well. It was so bold.
So
like,
fun.
You've just got this new ship, this new set. Now you're going to redesign it, get all new costumes. Just the set guys and the costume people are just on another level in the show.
This was the one where we found out that they were 3D printing on the leather pieces as well. So a lot of the things, like, I remember watching videos of the creation of the costuming for this episode, and it was just really fun to watch. It felt very much like how the creators of Lord of the Rings spent so much time really invested in making things that we maybe would have never known were so important, like the people who made the chainmail, and how much time they spent making the chainmail, and how they don't have fingerprints anymore because they made so much chainmail. But
worth it.
Like, did we need to see that level of detail?
Yeah,
it looked fucking amazing, and it made it real. But we didn't know we needed it.
Yeah.
We didn't know we needed it, but now, like, you'll see these things in these, high resolution, and it's just like, man, look at that really detailed. All the things that they had, all the costuming, even Mbenga in this one, just the way that their costuming is just to the next level. And we get to do that with fun things like 3D printers, and thankfully no one had to lose, their fingerprints.
I don't know. I feel like you feel more satisfied if you've had to suffer for your art. I had to press 4 buttons. Okay, moving onwards. Episode 9. All Those Who Wander, or Aliens.
Oh, Hemmer. Right, yes.
And we got to talk to Bruce Horrick about this as well.
He
did. Brought up that it was kind of influenced by Aliens, and we're like, thank God you're going to mention it, because we were all thinking it.
Kind of, in quotes. Yeah, I remember this was my least favorite episode.
But was it the rip-off nature of it, or the influence?
Just from the beginning, I was just like, maybe you could do your own thing.
The Gorn
like, maybe
aliens
you could do a spin on aliens, but just don't exactly do aliens.
Yeah, literal chest bursters and everything. Deneé, what do you can you remember anything about the synopsisizing of this episode?
Well, I do want to say, yeah, we've seen some of this stuff before, and by we I mean other people because I haven't. But like, if the Gorn were written this way, that they were chest bursters, maybe that was written in content inside the Star Trek universe. Like, it's not uncommon for certain themes to be repeated because parasites live inside of things and burst out. That's nature. Mm-hmm. So
that wasn't the only thing. But yeah.
I don't think I'm mad about like some of the similarities that we've seen, but maybe some of the shots and stuff that were meant to be like an homage or like a love note to something felt cheap because of it. But I thought it was still done really well. But this is like a horror episode, and it was not fun to watch because I personally don't want to be in a state of panic and fight or flight while I watch my fun stuff. And then, of course, we have to go through a very horrible moment when Hemmer falls off of a cliff before turning into a Gorn himself, or before the Gorn is allowed to pop out of him. So in this episode, they're on this ice planet, and the Gorn can't really survive in that temperature. So they're sort of isolated where a ship has had a Gorn attack, and when they get to the ship, they see all the signs that shit's gone sideways, and there are people on this ship that they're saving who are exhibiting signs that something is wrong. So there's this tension of these people who have leakage happening and pustules happening, and so we not only lose people that could be fun characters to carry with us, but we're also potentially being infected ourselves and also having to figure out how to survive in this very tight space with darkness and, people being dragged into the darkness with their little fingers in the foreground, like squeaking along and blood spatter. And this is a fucking intense one that ends with our favorite character dying. Yeah. Was not easy.
And we get
Spock
that turns his emotion chip on so that it allows him to turn into a rage monster. Am I remembering that right?
Oh, yeah,
like that's not
he rages
in the synopsis, but he like goes full primal and screams and goes like ape shit.
Yes, he does. He goes into full survival mode because he realizes that shit's gone sideways. Yeah, this is a fucking creepy one.
I think you're both wrong. I have got the biggest smile on my face. I remember having the same issues with this episode, but thinking back on it, this is why I love Star Trek, because it can, like the episode that we watched, Genesis, that is a horror movie in a Star Trek episode. And that's what I love it when it can genre hop like that. Yes, it is majorly derivative of another sci-fi property, but it's a well done version of it. Like, I think it's a really great version of that concept for me. I really enjoyed it. I really bought into the heart of what Hemmer was saying to Uhura, because Uhura's having a crisis about, should I be in Starfleet or not? What should I do? And he's just like, look, quit stressing about it and just see what happens. Like, don't overthink it. Just follow the path that you're on. I hated saying goodbye to Hemmer. I know there's got to be reasons why they want to change the chief engineer, or maybe Bruce Horrick wasn't available, or whatever the reasons are. I hate that we lost Hemmer. I think he had so much to give us, probably more than any other character in the show. Really sad to see him go, but I love this episode. I really did. Aaron, why do you hate it?
I think I mentioned enough already. I did want to ask, though, because Deneé mentioned something that I think is important and would be helpful to me. Is there pre-established canon about the Gorn that this is how they interact with people? Or okay, so this
all we know is that the crocodile fights with Kirk on the planet.
Okay.
And we watched the video.
We know that they're very warlike. Now, there's lots of stuff in books and stuff in stories, but not
That's
this.
What I'm saying, yeah.
Nothing about birthing pods and how they incubate and stuff like that. This is all new to Strange New Worlds.
I thought that was a really valid point.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just wanted to explore it a little bit further because you have much more knowledge than I do. I just think for me, I don't mind homages. I think homages can be really fun and really interesting. For me, I wanted something about this more often to set it apart. It felt like a This is too mean. This is too mean. This is exaggerated. But it felt like a middle school play of Guys and Dolls or something, where it's like, I kind of just want to go watch the original so I can see it done better.
Okay. Okay.
And
I get it.
And so there is that element to it. But I also might just be mad that they took Himmer from me. That could be part of it as well.
That's fair. Interestingly, the chat has reminded us that, and I've forgotten about this entirely, La'an leaves. She takes a leave of absence at the end of this episode to go and help her former colony, or somebody sends a distress signal and she's going to go and help them out. So she's not in the finale at all. She goes off on her own mission.
Also takes a leave of absence at the end.
He sure does. A permanent one.
This episode.
Yeah.
As does that kid on the planet.
And for anyone who hasn't gone and listened to like our podcast series of season 1 or listened to the in-between stuff, we do have the interview with the actor who played Hemmer, and we got to learn some interesting things, specifically like how they shot some of the scenes, how they have walls of screens behind the actors so that as they move around in this pretend environment, the screens reflect what's around them so they can kind of get some perspective. I thought that was really, really interesting. And yeah, it was a really fun time to chat with a character that we adored, and we got to share the Hemmer voids.
We did with him,
which was
and the
nice.
Durfa Prize as well. But he had some great insights about what it was like being partially sighted as well, and working on Star Trek, and just so many great insights from him. Loved that interview. Thank you, Bruce. We love you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Episode 10. Good Lord, A Quality of Mercy. This is how you do fan service and references, people. This episode kicked all of the buttocks. I could have done a 3 to 5 hour essay on this episode and how cool it is, and to do something original in Star Trek isn't easy, because if you go to YouTube and type in Star Trek ... add a word, you'll find a clip where they've done it. And this episode surprised me, and I didn't know where it was going. I had an incredibly good time with it. You guys are allowed to now speak. Aaron.
Well, you have said that you liked it, but you haven't said what the episode what happened.
Exactly. I'm not saying anything about what happens. You guys, what do you remember happening in this episode? Let's throw to Aaron first.
I remember this being a alternate parallel telling of a TOS episode, right? Yeah. I remember thinking it was really, really cool to kind of play, because there are moments that happen in both episodes, and it's pretty well done, if I remember correctly, how they compare, which I think is not only interesting, but when executed to this level, exhilarating. So yeah, I love that kind of, you've seen the story, but you didn't know this was going on. All the way back to Lion King 1.5. You know what I mean? Like there are just these stories that. I guess you probably should take it back to like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, like that kind of thing. Like the story, but did you know this was happening too, or this is a more context to it? I love that kind of stuff. So I think that'll always be interesting for me, and I think it was done really, really well.
Deneé, because I remember you saying there was some moments where you were like, "That's really weird," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's because they redid the scene in the original."
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I think the only thing that I can remember is that maybe in the previous episodes he was looking up the children. So Pike is seeing the future. We forgot to mention this. And Pike is seeing the future, and in the future there are cadets that die during this whatever happens, the radiation.
Yeah, on the Enterprise there's a big old radiation leak, and a bunch of cadets and new officers and ensigns die under Pike's command, and he gets really, really badly injured. And he's decided that maybe he can change the future if he can convince these kids to not join Starfleet, because their current list is 7 years away. So he's going to try and convince them to not join Starfleet or alter their paths.
Yeah, so he's been kind of peeping in on these families, because in his timeline where he's at now, they're still children. And so he's basically considering some differences that he can make. I don't remember anything that happens in this episode.
Man, that's amazing.
zero. Can you guys give me like little something that I can see if it sparks?
Okay.
Like, okay, yeah, it's an alternate future, but what happened?
So Romulans, Pike. So I'm going to say Romulans as your first big clue.
Doesn't matter.
Cool. A Romulan ship, and they have to decide whether to engage, attack, or retreat.
Nope.
Pike makes a choice that affects the future of the Federation.
Nope.
Pike shouldn't.
I don't remember this at all.
That's amazing. Well, let's just go from the beginning, because an older version of Pike turns up in our Pike's quarters and says, "Hey, buddy," and he's in the Monster Maroon uniform, and he says, "Hey, buddy, you're gonna prevent your own injury, and no matter how you do that, whatever permutation of the future there is, it's fucking awful." And the Federation ends up being at war with the Romulans. Shit goes sideways in every version of the future where you don't get maimed. And he says, to prove it to you, here's a snapshot of something that happens in the future that shouldn't happen. And he lives a day in the future where he's in command of the Enterprise, and Captain Kirk should actually be in command of the Enterprise. And it's exploring, in this episode, the choices that Kirk makes compared to the choices that Pike makes, and how Pike is a different type of leader results in the Romulans taking advantage and thinking that all of Starfleet is like this. Do you remember any of that? It's fascinating. Aaron, is that all ringing bells and stuff?
Oh yeah, no, I do actually remember this episode again, because I thought the concept was so cool, and the idea of, branching timelines and all that kind of stuff is going to be very, very interesting to me. Also, I thought the Kirk portrayal was always going to be an interesting choice, but I liked it. And I really liked the way the episode played the differences between their styles, because I think there is a little bit of a tendency to see Pike as a Kirk-type captain. Yeah. But he's really not. He's really not. And I think this episode really showed that in some cool ways.
Because in Kirk's episode, Kirk kind of gets slammed for being a bit too aggressive, because he is staying toe-to-toe with this cloaked Romulan warbird and is saying, we need to attack it so that they know we mean business. And if this ship gets away, then they're going to go back and say, oh, the Starfleet are a pushover. We crossed over into their space, blew up some star bases, and they did fuck all about it. So we're going to turn up with a fleet. And Kirk is kind of pushing, we need to cripple this ship and destroy it so that they know that we mean business and they can't just walk all over us. It works out well, because they kind of come to an accord, and the Romulan ship decides to retreat and ends up getting destroyed anyway, so Kirk comes off as the good guy. But in this version, they call for backups, and there's this like hideous like face-off that leads to war, we assume. And then Pike goes back in time, and old Pike is like, yep, told ya. And Pike agrees to let his future be what it will be. So it kind of resolves his arc of what am I going to do about my future, and he kind of has a bit of closure, and I'm hoping we keep that closure so that we don't keep bringing up this self-doubt and I only have so many years left to live, what am I going to do with them? Because that would be really distracting for future episodes.
It's kind of Captain Pike across the Pike-averse.
Yeah, it really
is kind of what goes on here.
And it's A Wonderful Life and Scrooge as well. Like, here's the Ghost of Christmas Future.
I do remember something. Yeah. I remember sitting down after the episode going, that was a pretty confusing, but like I don't understand, and you guys are so fucking excited.
And that's perhaps the bit that's unkind.
That they had done something so amazing because they had repeated some stuff, and you got to do like this Kirk Pike comparison, and I'm just like, that was an episode of TV that happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't get why it was so powerful until we talked.
It might be the most unforgiving, because you can get the gist of it, but there's no way you get that impact unless you know the Balance of Terror episode. So maybe it is a bit unkind to new fans.
And I find it interesting that after all this time, this is the one episode that I'm like, I don't remember shit from it, and it might be because of that. Yeah. Like, I think...
Then it also has
let's do
stupid
it.
tags. I'm so angry about the tags to this episode just because it is all marketing. It is all people in a room going, "Oh, we got to do something so they'll come back and watch season 2.
You've been renewed.
And it's
We're
just
going
like,
to watch it."
I was very, very frustrated with those tags.
So this is the post-credit.
What's
this
the
is
tags?
the post-credit, pre-credit scene. It's a post-credit scene that happens before the credits.
It is,
and
yes.
it's Una being arrested. So Pike's lady friend comes back, arrests Una because they found out that she's an Illyrian.
She's illegal alien.
And that's where we're presumably going to pick up in episode 1. Yeah, unnecessary, a little bit frustrating. But I'm going to go back to, I watched Balance of Terror with my dad before I let him watch the finale. And I said, we're going to watch Balance of Terror.
For no reason whatsoever,
whatsoever. And
Just what I picked randomly.
And he was blown away by like the comparisons and it's almost unfair to show this episode and not tell us to watch Balance of Terror. But I also know you want your big surprise.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okie dokie. That's the season. So after we've done a recap, let's start with Deneé. How did your thoughts, feelings on the series change after being reminded of some of it? And what are your big standouts?
No, I think I'm still convinced that this might be one of my favorite Star Trek experiences. I'm really glad that in between seasons we've gone back and visited some TNG, here on the podcast, because I've seen some really great TV and been reminded about how even the older episodes still have something for me, but there's such a difference in pacing. And I feel like Strange New Worlds is doing old school stuff, but with a new way of telling stories. And I remember feeling that was a really engaging experience, where like TNG it just kind of still sometimes feels like, oh, this is just a different way of telling a story. We did just watch one that I thought was like maybe the best of all time.
Yeah,
and its pacing was pretty strong. Yeah, Data's Day had a nice clip to it the whole time. It really didn't stop. But even still, I think that like the writers are just writing a little bit more for a different audience. And I am that different audience, I feel. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm nervous because the bar is high, but I think I'm excited to see what they do and to see how long they can keep it going, because this is what I want my Star Trek to feel like. Although I am going to continue to miss some of the references, and not remembering that final one is really kind of messing with my head a bit.
Bet.
And so it might have gone from like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 to like a 9 out of 10 in a way because of that. I just hope that they don't do that a lot, because clearly it did something. Clearly it missed something.
Well,
Aaron,
I mean, I don't think it's spoilery at all to mention a particular episode that everybody knows is going to happen, or is it for Deneé?
No, Deneé knows that it's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's spoilery to mention the Lower Decks crossover that's going to happen in season 2, and that might be similar to this, where there might be a lot of inside Lower Deck stuff. And I know you've watched a couple episodes of Lower Decks, so maybe that'll be a little bit better. But
and all of season 3, which is good. So you have seen quite a few.
You've seen all of okay. So, but yeah, I imagine this show will do those kind of things occasionally, and I'm here for it. Some of them may miss me.
I want every season finale to be a reenactment of an old episode of Star Trek.
As long as it's TOS, I'm in. But like if it's some other corresponding show, it may confuse me. I don't know. I will be probably incorrectly and unhealthily focused on the standalone episode nature of the show.
Fair enough.
It's just what's going to keep me in love with this show, and that may be unfair. It's just who I am. And the second this show turns into Discovery or Picard, where it's a season-long plot, and every episode is just another step towards that plot, it's going to get really annoying to me. So as long as they can keep the adventure of the week stuff going, I'm going to be really in, because I love that stuff.
It would be wild to me if they didn't. It has been branded, marketed, propelled as that from day one. I will be stunned if they abandon that, but it will be a very fine line to walk it, because they're still going to want to do some of it. But they wrapped up pretty much everything that they set up. They pretty much wrapped up last season. The Gorn will be ongoing, just like the Klingons, Romulans, and Borg are. Una is the cliffhanger that I think is the one thing we're like, oh, you didn't need to do that. Pike's thing got resolved mostly, and Benga got resolved. So that kind of brought me some comfort that those things are kind of done. And then
you think the Pike thing is done?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
That'd be nice. I just think it's too tempting of a big overall, like, can you change the future kind of thread that I think they will have a hard time not playing with.
I don't know why you have that finale if that isn't your we're done. Like, this is wrapping it up.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Exactly. I would be really confused.
I'm
even more confused about. I would be extremely confused about the season finale. It will actually make the season finale worse for me if they bring it up again, because I'm like, why are we revisiting this? That was a great. If seeing the future is a shit heap, what if that doesn't convince you? What else is going to convince you? And we already have the Menagerie, which is a two-parter in TOS, is a great resolution to Pike's story, which we have. So. And that happens 10 years from now, so I don't know why we would have to keep dipping back into this. Who knows?
Right.
But
I'm really hoping that we don't do too much where, like, so it's interesting because this show precedes TOS, and so whatever the fans have seen in TOS between, like, Spock and Chapel or whatever, it should be, like, all that we need to know. So I hope they don't go too heavy-handed with, like, the T'Pring obviously might need to come, like, they're probably going to do the love triangle situation, and I hope it's not too heavy-handed in that, because...
it's a tricky thing because in TOS we also have a resolution to the T'Pring thing. So the showrunners have said we will be doing interesting things with the show's canon, like the established canon. We'll try not to break it too much. And I hate being the canon gatekeeper, but it is there. These things did happen. I'm happy for it to be bended and interpreted, but let's not outright make it inconsistent. I don't know. I don't want to be too precious about it.
Don't break Ian's show, guys. Don't break Ian's show.
It is a beloved thing. So let's not, like, do something.
Right.
He recently had one of his favorite Star Trek movies broken for him. I saw it happen.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
My goodness. We'll talk about that at some point. Fuck you, Jeremy Scott. Right, Deneé.
So I think my point is that I hope that they don't try to rewrite stuff too much for a new audience, but rather just, like, let it be what it is. And in the characters that we don't know that well, like Ortega, for example, or the Doctor, these characters that we can kind of, like, play with a little bit more, you can give us more in those dimensions, or even better, don't rely too much on that and show us really fun episodes in new interesting spaces every single week, because that's the stuff that we're really looking forward to.
Do it, exactly. I'm way more interested in, if there's something in TOS that doesn't make sense that you want to quote unquote fix or rewrite, find a clever way to get us to what TOS gave us and fix it that way rather than rewriting it. That takes more brain cells, more creativity for me than just, we don't like that, we're going to rewrite it. But yeah, there we go. All right, I really enjoyed that. That was a fun breakdown. I needed that recap going into season 2. So I'm really glad we did. Yeah, you clearly needed it, Commodore. Your performance
I was glad to provide it for you.
Your performance review is going to be as he drops a fidget spinner next to the mic. Your performance review.
Mics are being dropped.
Everything's falling apart.
Spinners are being dropped.
All hands, abandon ship.
It's everything.
The ship is literally falling apart around us. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to do season 1. Damn it! Season 2, episode 1 of Strange New Worlds. We are so excited for that. Live show next week, if you want to join us, will be Thursday, 12:30 Central Time on YouTube live, and CinemaSins live Twitch. Every episode thereafter, 99% certain, will be on a Friday. We'll tell you if anything changes. The Commodore will be with us for most of the journey. There's a couple where you can't join us, but
I think I know of one for sure that I cannot join.
So we're gonna have some fun. I'm really, really excited. There's no end of episode quotes. So do you have anything to say before we sign off, guys?
If you would like to check out my Angel Chapel fanfic,
oh wow,
it does not exist. You'll have to write it yourself.
Yeah,
but please tell me where.
Yeah,
you end up posting that.
Tell us where to find your fanfiction.
No, I am excited. I would encourage the podcast listeners, if you can join us for a live episode, please do. We have a lot of fun, especially whenever it's brand new content that none of us have seen before. Join the excitement if you can. Every Friday at 12:30, right?
Yeah. Ish.
Central, except for, like we said, the first episode of this new season will be on next Thursday at 12:30. If you can, and if you can't, that's totally fine. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I've said this many, many times. I'm going to say it again. Ian and I didn't know if this was the kind of show that would be kind of a fun crossover of the CinemaSins world into a fandom. Mm-hmm. And it's just been really fun to hear your guys' feedback. So even if you can't join us for a live show, if you ever have any questions or comments, you can always message them to us. It's just been really fun to kind of like, I don't know, find our little space in this world.
It really is.
So even if there's something that you think of later on that you want to share, you're always welcome to send that in, because we know not everybody can be for the live content.
And we just crossed, as of last week, 60,000 total downloads. So thank you guys for downloading our show. Woo! We love you so much. We can't believe you want to listen to us talk about Star Trek. That's insane. So I guess that's it. So from Captain Ian, Commodore Dicer, and Ambassador Deneé, we'll see you next week. Live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
So are we going to do this thing where it's like, hey, what do you remember from episode 1? And then you give us like little hints about what we're supposed to remember.
I was going to do a whole speech at the beginning of the episode about how expecting me to remember what happened in the last season of a show is a lot.
It could be kind of fun. Like, you give us little clues and then we try to build around it.
That's a great idea. I love that. I mean, I'm reading the Wikipedia descriptions in front of me and I can't remember some of these episodes.
Great. How did you feel about Ian changing the background of your computer to be the Deneé bidet?
He got so mad.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
Did I?
He got as mad as Aaron gets.
What? I sent you a text message. Do you want to read this very angry text message?
I do.
Oh my God! Please read it with the influx, like the inflection.
Yeah, I want to hear how you heard this text message.
Yes, that's important. So for anybody that doesn't know, last week's live show, I shared an image with Deneé that I made about 2 weeks after meeting her, when we were, for some reason, talking about bidets. So I photoshopped a picture of her onto a bidet. And as I brought it up
which
on
is
screen,
the best rhyming Deneé bit since we did that with Deneé on a beignet.
Yes.
Yes.
It may have been that inspired it. It may have been a BTS thing. So yeah, Deneé on a bidet was just too good to not do. So I set it as Aaron's background. So Aaron...
Well, let's to explain a little better, you said it as like half of my background. Like it was just the upper half of the picture.
Setup.
It was weird. I didn't understand it.
I set it as a background, but it dominated the top screen and then didn't do anything with the bottom screen, bizarrely. Yeah. I just wanted it up there, but it did something weird and did the whole thing. Aaron hasn't messaged me in like 2 days because he's been in Vegas doing Vegas things. Mm-hmm. So out of the blue, the first message that I get is man,
No, I think I started it with dude.
Which terrified me. That was so intimidating. You never call me dude. Dude, period.
Oh, a period. Oh no.
What did you do to my studio?
That's
period.
It. That's me being angry.
That's so intimidating. That's so mean.
It's not mean.
You have an F-bomb every other word in that sentence. Like not written, but this reminds me, subtext.
This reminds me of the time where you admitted to me that when I don't put an exclamation point on my okay, that you think I'm mad at you.
Or a smiley face or a love heart.
Yeah.
The effort that you had to go to do dude, period. Mm-hmm. What did you do to my studio? You know how I know that you're mad?
Yeah, how?
There isn't a question mark at the end of that sentence.
Oh,
there's a period.
Me miss whatever it is, punctuating something is not indication that I'm mad.
No, it is, because the question mark is very specific. You just went period. It was like statement. What did you do to my studio?
It wasn't even computer screen. It wasn't
monitor.
Well, it was the entire space.
Well,
let's be clear. Down? It was one of like 3 or 4 things that I had to change.
Get out. I said, oh my goodness, Aaron, I'm so sorry. Whatever it is that I've done,
You did not. Okay, I'm looking this up. You did not say that.
I apologize unreservedly. You have my full capitulation. Please still be my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you meant by whatever you said?
I said, what do you mean I just moved the camera?
Okay, and that's what that meant?
Because that's what I do. I moved the camera. And he just said, bottom screen isn't working, period. Picture of Deneé on bidet, period. What is going on? Question mark. What is the chaos I have returned to?
Yes, that's all. I was curious.
A changed wallpaper and a moved camera.
and a screen that wasn't working.
I didn't do that.
And I should also mention, you set the computer to sleep or something while I was gone, which I never do with this computer.
I set it to sleep because you weren't using it. I replied to that saying, haha, okay, the wallpaper was definitely me. I thought it would make you chuckle. I have no idea what happened to the bottom screen. I didn't turn it off. I just put the PC on standby. Mm-hmm. And you replied, okay, period. I'll do a reset, period. Should clear things up, period.
I love that. I love your interpretation. I'm just having what I think is a normal conversation with somebody.
How else do you interpret that other than I'm mad at you?
You interpret the words. You don't interpret the whatever the emotion behind it.
Whatever emotion I want onto your words, sir. Thank you.
Well, that's not the way to have fun, son. The truth of the matter is, this is the first time Ian and I have spoken since then.
Yes.
I am furious with him.
Avoiding each other all the time.
And yeah, I will not make eye contact with him anymore.
That's fair. I actually don't like eye contact, so this has worked out great for me. Mama told me not to come. She said that ain't the way to have fun, son. You know that song?
Yes.
Okay, look, I don't know.
Yes. I'm vaguely aware of pop culture music through the ages.
I don't know which Welsh singers have made it over to America.
That's a Welsh singer?
Tom Jones, yeah. Well, maybe not originally. The version I know is Tom Jones. Mama told me not to come.
That's the way that it's done, son.
So who do you know that sang it?
I have no idea who sings it.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was Tom Jones. That ain't the way to have fun, son.
Yeah, so, Three Dog Night is who does that song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like, there's no way that's Tom Jones.
Tom Jones has done a cover of it.
I would love to hear it.
You don't believe me?
I don't believe that if he has, I don't believe that you have heard Tom Jones' cover of it, even if he's done a cover of it. The Three Dog Night version is the version of that song. Is this Tom Jones?
Yeah.
Man, living in England must be weird. That's so weird. It would be like saying Tom Jones is the singer of I Did It My Way. Like,
no, it's not.
Yes, it really is. Like, that is a Three Dog Night song. That is a cover.
That ain't the way to have fun, son. That's the only version I know, okay?
Maybe I'm wrong. Which one came first?
I mean, I'm sure the Three Dog Night version one came first. I'm sure that one came first. But Tom Jones is the version that I know.
But it must be just from living in England, right? Like,
yeah, it's got to be. Okay. Yeah, that's got to be an English thing. You were convinced that Tom Jones hadn't even released that as a song. It's just funny to think of a cover being in somebody's mind as the representation of a song. Yes. This happens to me a lot because I'm not super plugged into music, so I often get the versions of songs wrong. And they're like, oh, it was much better when someone else did it. And I was like, well, they should have done it first then. And they did. Oh, okay.
Tom Jones, Mama Told Me Not to Come is a cover of Three Dog Night's Mama Told Me.
It's fine. I understand.
No. I'm trying to... Because Three Dog Night's 1970 version was a cover. Oh, the Tom Jones version was 2000.
Yeah, it was ages ago.
Okay, so this explains something. Because you would have been, around 10 then?
10, exactly.
So, like,
and I'd have heard it on the radio.
Yeah. The other one came out before either of us were born, by the way, just so we're clear.
Yeah, uh-huh. What, 6 months?
Randy Newman wrote that song.
Of course he did.
In 1967.
Of course he did. He wrote everything.
Newman released the song himself on an album called 12 Songs. Mm-hmm. I'd like to hear that. I would love to hear
his version of it.
Randy Newman's version of
I bet
Mama Told Me Not to Come.
I bet it's not as good as Tom Jones' version. the quintessential version of that song.
The epitome.
Mm-hmm. Bark, bark. Happy dogs. Dogs are here. Dogs are doing things. So what have you been doing since you left the ship?
Enjoying a life of not thinking about Star Trek.
That sounds like a terrible life.
Blissfully unaware of any Trek.
You've been watching Picard, though. I know that. Did you watch all of?
No, that's true. I did watch all of Picard.
Yeah,
I was not impressed.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the show.
Will we?
Was it? No, we won't. So,
Okay.
what was it that you didn't like?
I mean, it was there. To me, there was nothing beyond the nostalgia. And because I don't connect to the nostalgia as much as everybody else, I mean, I think you could make a semi-decent movie from the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of the first episode, a little bit of the last couple episodes, make a movie. Maybe that movie's fun and interesting and I enjoy it. But there's not enough story to stretch out into those 10 episodes. And I just found myself being like, this is not fun.
That's kind of where we got to with 6, 7, and 8, wasn't it, Deneé? They were stretching the story really far in Picard season 3.
Yes. I remember it like it was yesterday. I clearly remember thinking, God, why? How? When? Where? Who?
I think sometimes nostalgia gets a bad rep when it's a fun thing. Nostalgia's fun. Like there's a reason it works for an audience because we like remembering things we love.
Yeah.
it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, the nostalgia thing didn't bug me, but that's because I do have a deep connection to the source material and what I'm having nostalgia at me. Like that hit me, but yeah, I wanted more story too.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency right now because there's so much regurgitated IP to feel like nostalgia in and of itself is a negative, and I just don't think that's true.
It's all in the delivery.
But if you're going to count on the nostalgia as the primary reason something is successful or good, you're limiting yourself to your most fervent fans.
Aaron, can I read some lyrics of the song to you?
Please, yes.
Okay.
Is it Tom Jones's version?
Yes, it is of Slime. Yeah.
Slime, because it's awesome, and I can make it, and it hardly costs a dime. You can touch it, but you can't keep it, because this particular glob is mine. Slime, 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 slime. Mom may hate it, but I still love it. It's my lovely, precious slime.
Yep.
Slime makes me feel warm inside and weirdly satisfied. I like to squeeze it and hold it and fold it and bounce it and twist it and try my best not to drop it. My favorite toy makes hilarious noise when I squeeze it and I feel good inside. That's why I'm gonna spend my time making slime.
Well, I most certainly just took all of those lyrics at face value and
These are children's songs. Calm down.
And know that it's a child song. And my brain didn't do anything weird with those lyrics at all because I'm a very normal person who wouldn't think that way.
We'll do another one that you cannot misinterpret.
Don't try me.
Oh no.
Everyone knows that you dress up on Halloween, but what about the 364 days between? Why do we have to dress so boring when we could look amazing? Of course, there's the clothes that you wear to school in the store. But after a while, they're a bore. I want more. I want to be a rock star. I want to be a mermaid. I want to be a unicorn. I want more. I want to knock them out at the grocery store. I want to look amazing. Why can't every day be Halloween?
It's good too.
Knock them out
really.
at the grocery store?
I highly recommend not knocking anyone out at the grocery store. However, the rest of that makes a lot of sense.
We'll fake a bony protrusion to make a phony illusion.
Makes sense.
Other way round.
No, wait. We'll make a bony protrusion to fake a phony illusion.
Other way round.
It's fucking shit.
We'll fake a phony illusion to make a bony protrusion. We'll fake a phony protrusion to make a bony illusion.
Yeah, that's what Deneé said.
I thought you flipped it.
No, she had it right.
Phony protrusion, bony illusion. Continue.
No, it's got to be bony protrusion. It would make no sense to say
phony protrusion because it's P and P together.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I remembered it.
Fake a phony protrusion to make a bony illusion.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
It's not the perfect solution, but the world's not big on inclusion.
Right. That doesn't quite rhyme, but it's close enough.
Okay, get out.
That's about a unicorn, right? That's the bony protrusion.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that this kid's song is talking about a unicorn horn.
Yes.
And not some other bony intrusion.
No.
It's not an intrusion.
No.
It's a Yep.
No.
No. Yep.
I think the only thing that I remember about this, and I'm excited to talk about.
Okay. Deneé just lost her mic.
Did you catch it?
Somebody from the future does not want her to finish this podcast.
I caught it before it
Nice.
broke my mug.
Nice.
Okay, well, this will be an interesting show. Please stand
This is
by.
staying in.
Do, 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 do,
Bum,
do,
bum, bum, bum,
do,
bum, bum. Oh, no.
Everything is falling apart.
So the second that happened, Nightbot said, "Did you like something? Clip it so we can share it and show it off."
No, don't clip this shit.
Clip it.
Clip it good.
That's amazing.
Clip it real good.
I'm just going to have to hold my microphone the whole time.
What just wrecked the mic?
Okay, the back of the mic is jabbing into the wall. We're good.
Aaron, can you head
Everything's
over there and help out?
Listen, I think she already has the solution to this problem in her home somewhere.
I've got to balance it on my arm.
She's wearing the microphone as a sling.
Didn't you order a solution to this problem a while back? Okay,
No.
all right. Well, then we.
But also, it's a different problem. It was where my arm is attached to my table.
Well, then that just needs to be resecured. Yeah.
Off. Yeah, which will be something after the stream is over. So this will just be my life
Amazing.
now for a
That's
hot minute.
great.
Well, thankfully, we're almost done.
So, yes, carry on.
Um.
Go.